kind consent of very eminent speakers, one of whom you are there with us. So thank you so very much. And you might have seen the schedule as well. There are other very good speakers that we could connect with this STTP, and we received very huge response. Overall, interest we received for maybe around 500 plus, and just now it's 130 plus. Maybe and the other participants will join soon. So this is the background, and the theme of this STTP says it all. Don't have to explain anything, much. And as the participants, you will listen to the talks by the speakers. You will appreciate this STTP, and every session, I'm sure you'll have something or the other to take away from. And at the end of this STTP, I'm really very confident, given the kind of speakers we do have, that you will find this STTP absolutely worth of your time. So rest assured of this from my side. I can maybe assure you of that. Only courtesy I'll extend from you that you because this very first in first session. That's how it's taking us little time. Or else we'll start the session absolutely well in time. Just 10 minutes for the initial part of it to welcome the eminent speaker and you all, and introduce the speaker to you. So with that, we'll start the session henceforth. So this is the inaugural session, so it has taken us little extra time, but then I hope you can understand and appreciate. So that was the background, Professor Vivek, I was sharing with you. So without now time, I'll request Professor Bhamu, the principal at ECB Bikaner, to kindly welcome the honorable speaker and welcome everyone else. So Dr. Bhamu, yes, please.
Yeah, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. First of all, on behalf of Engineering College Bikaner, I welcome Professor Vivek Kumarji. He has very long experience on this particular field, and I'm sure the participant will take the benefit of that particular field. And I am very thankful to the director of NIT Kurukshetra, who is basically always motivating us, Professor Satish Kumarji. Satan sir is always with us. He is very energetic guys and always guiding us. So I am very thankful to sir on behalf of Engineering College Bikaner.
Sir, unmute करिए. Yeah.
Yeah. The organizers basically worked very hard to make this particular event very successful. They, I think, requested they requested for the delivering of good lectures with the from the all over country, and I'm sure the participant will get good exposure about the subject. So this is a very burning topic, and I think most of the participants they are waiting to listen eagerly listen to Professor Vivek Kumar. We are not the expert of that particular subject, but we know what is the current problem, how the environmental issues can be tackled in the in way of developing our nation. So there are a lot of issues, of course, the either related with the environment changes, related with the water pollution, or related with the the other environmental issues. So a lot of issues will be delivered. I think we have good speakers also from the Bikaner, from the Maharaja Ganga Singh University. Begwansi ji is doing very good work in case of this renewable energy field. Someone is doing the research in the green chemistry. So there are a lot of good speakers. I think we will all blessed with their words only. So I will not take the much of time because our participant is eagerly waiting for to listen the experts' views on the particular topic. So again, welcome all the participants, and special thanks to Praveen Prohiji, who is taking this particular program in a lead way, and our colleague Prashant Bhakar, Nikhil Garg, and Oprakash Jakar. They are basically taking this particular program in a good sense of humor. So again, best wishes and thank you. Over to Satan sir.
Sir, there may be some network issue from Satan sir side.
Okay. Then Ravi, you continue. I request Praveen Prohiji, please say some few words. Praveen ji. Let us Satan sir will join till you please comment. Praveen ji, you please welcome. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words, and you have been always motivating for this kind of programs. And it is really
Yeah, Praveer ji, unmute yourself, na?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
So really nice to have such kind of career development program and short-term training program in association with the NIT Kurukshetra. And it's my privilege to invite Dr. Vivek Kumar, professor from IIT. And Vivek Kumar is professor in Center of Rural Development and Technology at Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. Dr. Kumar is coordinator of one of the major programs of the government of India, that is the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, that aims to utilize the knowledge institution of the country to help villages. Dr. Kumar is also coordinating subject expert group activities under Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. Dr. Kumar is a clean technology and liquid waste management expert. For industrial sector, he works in the area of process audit, process integration, implementation, cleaner production. Kumar is actively involved in several projects in the area of pollution control, especially the charters in paper, textile, tannery, and sugar industries. He is a member of several Central Pollution Control Boards Committee, working for pollution control in textile industries and paper industries, exploring and assessing the techno-economic feasibility of the implementation of zero liquid discharge in industries. He was associated with a joint project being executed by the of 7 IITs, Indian Institute of Technology, on National River Ganga Basin Environmental Management Plan. Some of his technical report work in this area are the rapid assessment of industrial pollution of the river Ganga in Uttarakhand and the strategy for improving the condition of water bodies in the vicinity of pulp and paper industries in Ganga River Basin. Now, he is currently working on his low-foot product domestic sewage treatment system for cold regions and rural areas. Kumar has guided 8 PhD theses, published around 140 articles in the journals, conference proceeding, books, a chapter, and 2 books. He has completed more than 25 research and development and consultancy projects and currently implementing 5 research and development and consultancy projects. He has research collaboration with several international and national institutes and universities. Presently, he is collaborating with Queen's University and Cranfield University, United and University and Toronto, Canada. Kumar was also a visiting research professor in the Department of Chemical Engineering and Applied Science at University of Toronto in the year 2014. So we are indeed highly obliged by him that he is spared some time to deliver this expert lecture. So we will be greatly benefited by the lecture that he will be here. Now I hand over the session to Professor Satan sir. So kindly continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Praveen. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
I don't know. I mean, there's some issue in our power system maybe today, so I got disconnected again anyway. Fine. So thank you, Dr. Praveen. I'm sure you might have introduced the speaker by now. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the speaker.
Yeah, that's fine. So thank you so much. So with that note, without taking much time, I'll say to all the participants that yes, we are really very privileged to have Mr. Vivek Kumar to inaugurate this STTP with his first talk. And thank you so much, Professor Vivek, for accepting our invitation and being there with us for this particular session and for this, for inaugurating this STTP, in fact. So with that note, I think over to you, sir. You can start your session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Sitans. First of all, my namaskar, namaste to all. Thank you, Professor Damu, Professor Sitans, and Professor Praveen for such kind words. And today, actually, I will be talking not specifically on water or air or some one particular area of environment. My topic would be more on the perspective of the development and the growth. So first of all, I would like to thank Professor Satansh for giving me this opportunity to talk to you, to have a discussion in this STTP. So as I said that I'll be talking on, so as the topic of my talk is, let me just share with you, is ecological perspective of growth and development. I think you need to give me, okay, this is right.
Yeah, Nikhil, हाँ, sir, we can see आप share हो रहा है, it's getting shared.
I think it's
Yes, sir.
getting shared.
हाँ, yeah.
It's getting shared.
Share is
It's starting, sir.
निखिल, आपने सर को प्रेजेंटर बनाया ना निखिल?
Yes, sir. I am in the presenter.
Okay. हाँ, प्रोफेसर,
Okay.
you can see.
Okay.
इनको full screen कर लीजिए आप. Full screen पे ले आइए.
Let me just do. Okay. So I think right. So my topic
Yes,
for today's presentation is ecological perspective of growth and development, the paradigm shift. You see, today actually I will be talking about what is the world view, today's world view on economic growth, and then probably I'll try to discuss the contradiction of this world view with the ecological perspective, or the perspective or the world view about this ecology or the biosphere. Then we will be discussing some of these paradoxes, and then I will touch upon the functioning of biosphere in a very simplistic manner. And then finally, we will talk about something on this paradigm shift. Now, as in the beginning, there's also mentioned about the cleanliness of the river. So I will also start my today's talk with few slides. This is something, a very popular belief of this COVID time, that nature has bounced back. All of you must have seen a lot of photographs on different social media platforms. And yesterday I saw one video showing, fishes are actually, I think it was from Beas, Mandi in Himachal, Beas River. Several such photographs, videos, there are.
Sir, there is some network format of speakers in.
Professor Vivek, we are not getting your audio.
So yes, sir, there's some also in the video, also some blocks are there, so there's a network issue over there.
Koni, let's see. This is online platform at times because of bandwidth issues. Professor Vivek, if you can hear, maybe you can keep your video off, just be available through audio, so that will maybe help you save some bandwidth at your end. Yeah, the slides are visible, but your audio is not coming as yet. Maybe so. These kind of glitches at times in online platform happen, but it's okay. We bear with this. Maybe Professor Vivek will fix it up. At times, for whatever reasons, even in my case, there was a little part fluctuation and I got disconnected. So likewise, so all participants, my request, kindly bear with it. I think yeah, Professor Vivek is trying to fix things up. If it's not working this way, Professor Vivek, if you can hear me, what you can do is maybe you can
Hello?
leave the meeting. Yeah, yeah, we can hear you, sir. Now.
Hello? Can you
Yes,
hear me
yes,
now?
audible है sir. हाँ, we can hear you.
So
आपकी slides अभी slide में दिख रहा है. ठीक है sir. आप go with. हाँ, that's fine sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, I think
Go
there
ahead.
was some problem with the network. You know, three people are connected with network.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
two children also, they are also having classes. And
We
there is a
understand,
power
sir, we understand.
there's a power cut in my office, so that's why I'm here. So I think
And not-
now I've changed the network, so probably it will work now.
No, it's fine sir. Now it's okay.
Right. Sir. So these images we have taken from this, these are the satellite images, and you can see this is the left picture is for it's before lockdown, and then second is during lockdown. This is about average aerosol, and you can easily see that how the picture is changing, and the point which Professor Sadans was mentioning, that the environment is on cleanliness drive, or the nature is on cleanliness drive. It's true to some extent that we can see that the concentration of aerosol. Now, this is true not only with aerosol, but with all kind of pollutants. So this next figure is for NOx. So here also we see that these red spots are actually decreasing. Still we see some of the red spots, and probably that is due to some continuing activity like continuation of thermal power plants and all. So there you find these spots during the lockdown also, but mostly you will find that this emission is also reduced all across the country. Again, the same thing is with SOx, and in case of SOx, similar to NOx, you still have one or two small red dots around the similar area where you find higher NOx concentration. And as I said that, so still I'm not audible. Am I audible or not?
Yes,
Perfect,
you are
audible,
okay.
sir.
Perfect. Okay,
Perfect.
sir. Continue.
I'm getting some message that somebody is saying that I'm not audible. Okay, that's
Maybe
why.
it's- the problem could be at his end or her end maybe. So you're perfectly okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. So here also we see that this is how the SOx concentration is reducing. Now there is no rocket science in deciphering these three slides. We all know that traffic has stopped, industrial activities are stopped, or very small industrial activities are going on, and the result is that we are getting back our nature. We are getting our nature back. Similar kind of results. You like Professor Satans talked about the cleanliness of the Ganga. So we conducted with IIT Kanpur and IIT Roorkee, IIT Patna, IIT Kharagpur. Jointly, we conducted one study on Ganga Yamuna basin during this lockdown period, and some very good results we found, very optimistic results in terms of the cleanliness of the water. Of course, because other anthropogenic activities are continuing, so results are not as good as being projected over the media. But yes, there is a significant change. However, I have not included those results here, although that is my own area, because they are saying that this year rains had been very good, so that's why there is a larger amount of water available in these basins, and that's true up to some extent. So this year we have more water in Yamuna and Ganga. So that's why I have not taken those results. But with these results and some other results, and then other photographs or videos, you must have seen that wild animals are found near to the cities and several towns. All these slides actually indicate to one thing, is that we are actually interfering a lot. We are playing with the nature a lot. Let me come to another picture. This illustration I have taken from a book called The Third Car. His author of this book is a very famous film director, Mansoor Ali Khan. Those who don't know him, then I can just tell that he is uncle of very famous actor Amir Khan. This illustration has got two pictures, two figures. One is this bulb brain. Then, and the second picture is, all of you probably must be knowing, a very, very famous masterpiece from a very famous painter, Leonardo da Vinci. This is Vitruvian Man. Right. So, as rightly indicated with this bulb brain, it is nothing but mind. So like your imagination, your mind can think of anything. It has no limit. Just by sitting here, I can just imagine that I become the president of this country or prime minister of this country, or I've taken that decision. And many times all of you do this kind of dreaming. For example, if our favorite player, we are watching cricket, and then if our favorite player is not doing so well, then we start imagining ourselves in his place and imitating. So such a power of the mind is there that we can imagine anything. It has no boundaries, right? The second picture, actually, Leonardo da Vinci, he made this figure or this picture. He had something else in mind, but in today's context, why I have taken these two pictures? Because my context is about growth, about the development. So the second picture is actually talking about the limits. If I take these pictures in context of the growth, economic growth, then the first picture talks about the concept of the growth, that is unlimited, without any boundaries, right? The second picture, which actually Vinci made to show the perfect ratios of human body, is actually indicating about the physical limit of the growth. This man cannot outgrow this circle, and that is true for our limit of the growth also, right? So the first figure is about the concept, our imagination, our belief in power of our mind or brain or our capabilities. Second is the reality. Right? Let me just share another interesting story from the same book. This is a story of a very brilliant runner, right? And this story is shown in 4 different phases. Looking at the initial progress of this runner, coach and runner both sat together and they projected the growth of this runner. And in the first phase, you can see this is showing the path or the trajectory which coach and runner together planned for this runner, right? So this is an exponential growth. And data, of course, they recorded from the same runner, and they felt that we have done the proper modeling, right? Then comes the second phase, and after certain time, runner actually start moving in a different direction than the projected trajectory or projected curve. So this green one you can see is actually the reality now. So in the second phase, both coach and runner started facing this reality that runner is not able to follow the trajectory, the projected trajectory. And this made both runner and coach worried, and they started working hard. Runner started practicing very hard. He also started taking some extra exercises and all, some extra tips by coach. But the result is phase 3. So what is the phase 3? We can see that runner is not coming back towards, in fact, he is drifting away from this projected trajectory. Instead of coming close to this trajectory, he is moving away from this trajectory. This is a phase where both runner and coach try to break their limits, extra efforts, and these extra efforts after a certain limit become demonic efforts, and because of those demonic efforts, the result is phase 4. And the phase 4 is a phase where runner is actually failed because of the fatigue in the body. Now this is a classical example, this is a classical story showing the conflict between concept and reality. So the concept is nothing but this red trajectory, and the reality is the green curve, and finally the fate is the fatality to this runner. So the same thing is happening with our economic growth model. Let me just try to explain a little bit more with this perpetual exponential growth model. All of you must be knowing the fact that now if I talk about about the 3 factors of production, what are the 3 different factors of production? Very basic economic question: land, labor, and capital. Right? Now, if you look at all these 3 factors, land, labor, and capital, 2 of them are real resources. Land is a physical reality. Land means natural resources. It is a physical reality. Labor is a physical reality. What about capital? Capital is something virtual. Now just imagine a time where this money was not existing. That time only there were 2 vector of production: natural resources and human capital, the labor. So this is, now we'll try to see how this concept is overpowering the reality, how this virtuality is overpowering, this the physical reality. In the beginning, probably someone must have started the concept of, or this concept of money must have come to do away with this barter system. And probably the problem with the barter system would have been, number one, the boundaries of exchange was increasing. So initially the exchange was within village, then probably within number of villages. Then probably they started moving outward from that cluster to cities, then to other states, to other countries like that. So slowly and slowly, they realized that this barter is not working, right? Then there was a difference in the quality of goods and services. So it was not easy to do this barter. So probably at that time, to value or to facilitate the exchange of goods and services, the concept of money came. But interestingly, very soon, someone who was involved in that handling that money realized that there is a productivity related to land, there is a productivity related to labor. So he started thinking that there should be a productivity linked with this capital, which is actually virtual, which is not real. And then he started talking about interest, and then interest on interest, that becomes the compound interest. And this, so this growth of money, how we, how this virtuality of money came into the economics, actually went to the growth model also, and we started talking about perpetual exponential growth, right? So this money, this circle of this money is, or the balloon of this money is actually growing. It moves to interest, then compounding, then perpetual growth. Right. What we have understood is that the difference between concept and the reality. But what is the problem? If everything is going in the right direction, if this balloon is growing, even if it is virtual, and if it does not affect me, what is the problem? Let it grow, but let's try to understand the problem or the challenges with this worldview. As I said that for an economist or the one who is propagating this typical worldview of economic growth, he thinks that natural resources, we have concern about the natural resources just because they are one of the three major categories of factor of production. That's all. So whether it is about natural endowments of the earth or whether any other life support system which nature is providing us. So this worldview actually thinks that economy, this ecosystem is nothing but a subset of economy, right? And we don't have to worry about this ecosystem because it is just a small subset of. And how is that explain the relationship between this nature and economy with this model? So here there is the interaction between natural environment and economy is shown. So there is a three-pronged interaction between economy and natural environment. I'm talking about the worldview, the current worldview. The first factor production, as I said, that we need resources, and these resources come from the natural environment. So extraction of non-renewable resources and harvest of renewable resources, both. So that is the first link between natural environment and the economy. Right. Second, we realize that during any economic activity, something is generated which is byproduct, which is waste, which is not useful. So nature is now needing to assimilate this waste. Okay. Then later on, we realize that beyond this factor of production and the waste assimilation, there is another activity on which we depend on nature, and this is nothing but environmental services, or rather environmental amenities, because environmental services is a very broad term. So we are just talking about environmental amenities. So, like bird watching, morning sunrise, somebody wants to walk on beach side, somebody wants to go for trekking, all those things where we get pleasure. We enjoy those features and those are called environmental amenities. Again, caution is that I am not talking about environmental services. So this is the word view which says that we are linked with natural environment to get resources, to get our waste assimilated, and then to enjoy some environmental amenities. And what are the fundamental assumptions of this whole theory? That this is the first assumption, which is the foremost also and the natural one. As far as this worldview is concerned, environment, natural resources are essential factor of production. So that is only economic concern for us. If let's suppose there is a environmental resource which does not have any economic concern, so we don't care about it, right? So many economists, they have shown that oxygen is 21% available in the environment. It does not have any price. You don't have any concern about oxygen. So we will do that little later in detail. But the matter of fact is that oxygen is abundantly available and market says that there is no scarcity. So let's not have any price for oxygen. And all of us know that oxygen is free, right? So we don't have any concern with any environmental resource, not have any economic concern. That is the fundamental assumption first. Second, Adams' invisible hand theorem, which ultimately graduated this into this market theory, which says that market actually can control the resource scarcity, and market actually provides information about resource scarcity, and that is why we have demand and supply curve, and this is controlled by fixing a price. And market itself, if market is perfect, this is of course one assumption, then it can provide us that information about the resources. We believe in unlimited resource substitution. Means if coal is not available, we will move towards crude oil. Crude oil is not available, we will move to shale oil. Shale oil is not available, then now we are questing for hydrogen, and so on. So resource, when I am talking about resource substitution, it is about substituting resource within a particular type of resource. For example, I have divided this resources in three categories: natural resources, land, labor, and capital. So resource substitution within land, resource substitution within, right? So, but then there is a possibility of substitution inter resources. Means natural resources can be substituted by capital, by labor, like that. So this is another assumption: unlimited resource substitution possibility. Fourth, where comes this concept of mind capabilities? Scarcity can be augmented by technology advancements. Means we are capable of addressing this scarcity problem through technology, and that also has got unlimited possibility. So, and the final assumption, which is actually nothing but the outcome of these first four assumptions, that nothing is lost in treating the human economy in isolation from the natural ecosystem. This is about the fundamental assumption which we talked about. Now let us talk about another paradox, economic growth model. How do we measure the growth? So all of us know that we actually talks about GDP or GNP, whatever, but it is economic output in terms of money. So when we say that our economy is growing, what we measure that our per capita income is increasing or our GDP is increasing. Let's try to see this from the point of view of the nature. When we talk about GDP, I'm just raising few of the issues. There may be several others. So when we talk about GDP growth, are we measuring degradation of natural resources? No, not at all. Second, related healthcare costs. In fact, in this case, things are quite interesting. The expenditure which is incurred on healthcare due to the pollution is actually counted in, which actually showing that GDP is growing, which adds to the GDP. This is a result of this is a kind of negative impact of this economy, and that expenditure is also going to the value of the economy. Very interesting. GDP, by any way, whether it can measure irreparable damage of biological resources due to exploitation beyond critical threshold, this is all we know, that if biological resources are exploited beyond a threshold limit, there is irreparable damage. We all know about so many extinct species and all, and we all know, those who are working with the water systems, they all know that if water, the flow in any goes below a certain threshold limit, or the pollution goes beyond a certain threshold limit, this aquatic ecosystem is disturbed because there is a irreparable damage, right? Fourth, for a long time we were just thinking that we are just exploiting. In fact, the people, those who were having environmental concern, they were also just thinking that we are just exploiting natural resources, but nobody was able to understand that our anthropogenic activity are actually disturbing the flow resources. You all know, there are certain flow resources, and we consider them renewable, and that's why we didn't have any concern. For example, solar energy is a flow resource, wind, air, it's a flow resource, and we were not concerning about them. We were concerning about natural resources because there is a limited stock. As I said, that some of the pro-environment economists, they could understand that there is a limitation of the resources. But as far as flow resources are concerned, even they were not having any concern with these flow resources. But now it is proven that, of course, these flow resources cannot be consumed, but we are actually augmenting these flow resources. What is greenhouse gas emission? Are we consuming the oxygen available in the air? No, not at all. But we are changing the composition by adding extra amount of greenhouse gases, and that is actually augmenting the flow of solar energy, which in ecology for which there is a balance, we are disturbing that balance. We are releasing ozone layer depletion, all us, we have seen, right? And this actually augmenting the flow resources. So we have that capability that we can augment these flow resources. And all this is not being recorded in GDP model. Further, are we talking about, or are we having any concern about the life support system? As I said, that our concern for the natural resources is that we exploit them for our economic, in terms of the productivity, we exploit them. But as I said, that beyond amenity, beyond having this natural providing us the natural resources. Environment, or this whole ecosystem is nothing but a life support system. It's doing the maintenance of this life support system. So this whole GDP business is nothing, is not having any concern with that. There are several such issues like climate regulation, genetic diversity, we all know. So what I'm trying to say that when I'm talking about this problem of scarcity in terms of natural resources, it is not as simple as scarcity of goods and services in the market. So this problem of scarcity is actually a trade-off between economic goods and preservation of environmental quality. And when we talk about production, which gives us some positive utility, it is a very simple model. So it is just talking about pollution waste, although there can be another link related to life support systems, but it's only talking about pollution waste. So while doing production, we are generating pollution. Pollution is deteriorating environmental quality, and this environmental quality is resulting into disutility. We must remember this. So any production activity, any economic activity is not giving us positive utility. Indirectly, we are also receiving some negative utility or disutility. Right. It does not stop here. Natural environment, we just talked about, we could understand something on natural environment. Let's go beyond that. This current economic model is like a black box. It is not only consuming natural capital and ecological capital we just talked about. Let's see three very important capital. So, three factor of production we talked about: land, labor, and capital. Capital, as I said, it's virtual. Two are the real ones, land and labor. About the land, we have seen the kind of impact we are generating. Now let's talk about the labor. How do we calculate the contribution of labor in our production system? Productivity is always in terms of man-hour. One person is invested 8 hours, that is the production hours, and that is all. That is the contribution of a person in the productivity or in the economics. How much time he just invested in the production. That's all. Let's see three invisible capital along with this productive time: social capital, cultural capital, spiritual capital. Are we counting these capital also? When a person is doing work or is investing his own time in this whole economic activity, I'm not saying that everybody should stop doing work. No. What I'm just trying to highlight is that the kind of model which we have created, we also must include spiritual capital, social capital, and cultural capital as a part of cost. All of us know that we calculate IRR or what is that payback or such things we always calculate whenever we go for a project, economic project or any project. We calculate what is the IR and in how much time will break even will come, isn't it? And how do we calculate? We just calculate cost and then profit, and then now when we calculate cost, as I said, that the resource cost comes from the market, which is not talking about any of the factors which we discussed previously. Cost about labor is also not considering cost related to social capital, cultural capital, and spiritual capital. Right. So these are some challenges I just highlighted. about this current model of economic growth. Right? We'll just talk about some more issues which are again significant, and these are the issues based on the fundamental assumptions which I just mentioned. And these two fundamental assumptions, first I will take the unlimited possibility of the resource substitution and too much belief on human capabilities, that is technology. Right? We have to understand what circumstances technology progress improve this resource scarcity, and whether the belief that under right circumstances technology saves resources and expand our forte. This is also a questionable hypothesis, which many economists propagate. Whenever we talk about the evils of this current model, they say that technology was not adopted in right circumstances. Circumstances were selection of the technology, circumstances, all these external factors are responsible, not technology. This is responsible for any evil. So let's talk about resource substitution first. This, all of you know, this is a basic life cycle. We all know that what is happening in this, what is happening in the biosphere. We have producers, consumers, and decomposers, and this is how they are linked with each other. This is just to show that there is a mutual interdependence among all elements of biosphere. Not even a single element in this biosphere is independent. The only problem is that we do not know the whole cycle. The whole chain is not known to us. That's why, otherwise, everything is linked with something in this biosphere. And when we talk about resource substitution, we forget about this complementary. So we must remember that even in the economics, factor of production cannot be substituted completely. There is a complementarity among the factor of productions. This we must recognize. Let's come to the technology, something on which we believe too much. And many times we, such kind of graphs we show, and many times we use these graphs to show that there is a assimilative capacity of the natural environment. Here I have used this graph to show that the propagator of the technology, unlimited capabilities of technology, they always claim that, or I mean, up to some extent this is correct also. So this first graph actually shows the assimilative capacity of the natural environment. So if we go beyond a certain limit, there will be irreparable damage to the environment, right? Next graph shows that what can we do with the technology? Technology, we can just change the slope of this curve, make it this more flat, and earlier this threshold economic activity was X naught, and by augmenting technology we have changed this production limit from X naught to X1, and that is what people, the support of the of this hypothesis, they say that the aim of the technology should be to make this production curve more and more flat, so that but when they talk about this, they actually forget that the assimilative capacity of the natural environment is not constant, right? So this threshold limit actually keeps on decreasing. Two, when we talk about advances in technology, what is our time frame? Time frame of technology is very, very small. I'll take one or two examples. How many of you remember that we had been using and probably my children actually they have never seen floppies. Then very quickly we came to the CD, and CD has a very less life. Within 5 years, now we have come to the pen drives and so on. So when we talk about the technology, time frame of the technology is very small, and it is comparable to the time or the lifespan of a human being, maybe 60 years, 70 years, and so on. Or it is actually varying from 1 or 2 years to, let's say, 60, 70 years. So many times what happens that when we talk about advances in technology, you don't understand all negative impacts of this technology, because sometimes we generate products which are new to nature also. So it has got two issues. First, nature is not decodified. In the previous slide that there is everything linked in this nature. So as far as nature is concerned, for nature nothing is waste. Whatever I am generating which is not useful to me is a waste for me, but for nature it is a raw material, or for food, some other organism. Nature everything is waste. But when we talk about technological advancement and we create some new kind of waste, sometimes nature is not able to, because nature does not know that algorithm. Nature is very complex, it understands so many things, but still there are several things, and we can have a separate discussion on that why, how is it possible that nature does not know any particular compound when it is made from the same elements which are, that's a separate discussion. But presently nature does not have algorithm or mechanism to, of course, it may come to nature will learn, and it has proven that nature actually learns. So this algorithm may come maybe 100 years later or 200 years later, but currently it is not available. This is one. Two, I talked about this lifespan. Remember, when we invented these chlorofluorocarbons, they were termed as wonder materials. Why? Because of their stability. They were being used as refrigerants. They were highly stable. They were being used in sprays and aerosol sprays and so many other applications, because they are highly stable compounds. And at that time also we must have talked about resource efficiency, improving efficiency, and so on, many things. But we forget that its impact cannot be studied within this short lifespan of a human being. What happened? Later on, it was realized that these chlorofluorocarbons are resulting into ozone depletion, and that all story you all know. So technology which we were promoting as a savior technology which is saving our resources, actually result into a very catastrophic or disastrous chain of events, right? And finally, so when we talk about the technology, we do not consider the imbalance of constituents. That is the diversity, which a little bit I will be talking more in our later slides. So I just conclude in this particular thing that when we say that ecological threshold of economic activity can be augmented by purely technological means, probably we are not looking at the comprehensive picture. we take very limited, our knowledge, our study is limited, and we just conclude very early. Right? Okay. Let's try to see technology from another perspective. If I can ask one question, of course, on this platform, it's not easy to ask. Can you tell me, can anybody think of nature? What is the behavior of the nature and what is the behavior of our technology interventions? If you closely look at them, both of them are contradictory to each other. In nature, if you see, nothing is constant. There is a continuous transformation of matter and energy. Natural changes in the species composition is there, and that is what we call ecological succession. So we start with primary stages, very simple but unstable, very highly unstable. So in nature, what is simple is unstable. And we move from simple things to climax stage, and this climax stage is very complex and diverse. So what nature tells us that what is simple, that is unstable. What is complex, that is stable. Of course, in this complex or climax stage also there is continuous changes. But these changes are the rate of these changes is very low. So what actually nature is doing, nature is moving from primary stage to climax stage. Unstability to stability. Sometimes people argue that if you look at the desert, it is also a very simple ecosystem. No, not of course. Simple is not a term in terms of species only. Complexity can be in terms of interrelationship, interdependence of different component of the ecosystem. There might be some less number of species, but how complex they are interrelated with each other, that is the question, right? So this is nature moving from simplicity to complexity. And what is human tendency? What is technology? Just opposite. Complexity to simplicity. We want to make things simple, right? As a teachers in technological institutions, we always say to our students, try to be simple in explaining. Your technology should be, your solution should be user friendly, right? So this is the basic contradiction between technical business model and this ecological succession. This is nothing but nature. I've taken some of the examples, how things become complex. This slide is very, font size is very, very small. I'm sure that many of you are not able to, but I just took this. This is a very typical study done by Andy Huff. This is in context with Meghalaya, and they were trying to understand the reasons for deforestation in Meghalaya. I'm not interested in explaining the whole story. I'm just trying to highlight few things. So how this, there is a cycle of this cause-effect relationship. And this is very interesting to see. So let's take anything. Deforestation led to, Deforestation led to soil erosion. Soil erosion resulted into decrease in biodiversity. It resulted into prompted conservation through government and international organizations. Very interesting. How this interventions, in the current worldview, they work. It's a very good example of that. So there is a problem of deforestation resulting into soil erosion, resulting in loss of biodiversity. Learned people like me came together. They thought that let us talk about this loss in biodiversity. Let's talk about some conservation program, talk to government, international organization, come up with some practices which, because I'm learned, so I feel that these practices are very good, which are actually highly unsound management policies, which is given by people like me, and then this ultimately leading to illegal logging, then deforestation, then this becomes the cycle. We know there are several examples. 1861 probably. Before that, there was no forest department in India. So it came in 1861. Apparently, it was projected that, and it was apparent to many of the learned people at that time, still people feel that this forest department was created to take care of the forest. But if you look at the hidden agenda is something different. How systematically we can take the products of the forest and how systematically we can destroy this forest was the agenda of this forest, so-called forest department. The whole ecology, the whole biodiversity of several areas in India was changed. My point is not to highlight the uh, you know evils of British Empire. Even today we are doing that. So what I'm trying to say that without understanding and why we are doing so, we are actually thinking that we are doing good, but without having the whole worldview of this ecological perspective, we are doing this. We are adopting wrong practices. A very interesting comparison. This next slide, how nature works and how our economic growth model works. Totally different context. The first one is Maslow's hierarchy human needs model, which start from physiological needs for survival. These are the levels of development. 1 to 5 means the highest level. So initially, I just need some air, water, food, shelter for my survival. Then I start looking for safety also. This happens, and everybody can understand it very easily. So once I have something to eat, then I talk about security, stability, law and order. Once I have that, then I become social. I start moving in the family, community. Then fourth level, now I'm looking for esteem, status, recognition. And fifth is finally self-fulfillment. So this is how our economic model, because economic model is based on, this growth model is based on human needs. And how our human needs are working? Individual, then little bit extension to individual, family, then society, then start at the level 5 inward movement. Within the society, I started isolating myself in the name of esteem, status, recognition. And then finally, again, level 5th, highly individualistic model. So first was highly individualistic, 5th again is a highly individualistic. In comparison to this, if you look at the water as a resource, and if you want to have a sustainable management of water resources, how you proceed? Let's see. So initially, we just need water for survival. Then we talk about agriculture, domestic water quality standards. Then we talk about regional water projects, then national water projects. But finally, if it has to survive, we are talking about water resource sustainability as a whole. So you look at the movement from individual went to family, family went to the whole society, society further went to the nation, and nation further went to spiritual level, I would say. Because finally, it tells us that nothing, you will not be achieving anything. We will just talk about national water projects. You have to think about water resource sustainability as a whole. And this we have understood. So this is the contradiction between, typical human need based economic model and nature based sustainable model for development. Another interesting slide, of course, I've taken from some of my other presentation. When we calculate basic water requirements, see what we have calculated: irrigation, domestic industries, and so on. Can you see there is a circle marked environment? Maybe this table is from CWC. Some people started saying that you are talking about water demand, you are talking about irrigation demand, domestic demand, industrial demand, but you are not talking about demand from the environment. Environment also need, as I talked about, life support system. Environment is providing life support system. It also needs water, not for me, not for you, but for other species, for survival of forest, for survival of aquatic environment. So then people started talking about, okay, let's also include this, one of the use environment, and see how much we are giving to this. Just 1%. Means if 100 liter is available to me, what I'm saying that I'll keep 99 liter with me and I'll just give 1% to the environment. 99% to humans and 1% to all of us. Very interesting. Right. Although, many of you can ask me a question that if not 1%, how much it should be? I do not know. Probably people have not worked much on that. But still, there is a conservative measurement which says that it should be at least 25%. Anyway, so that is what we are discussing. Now let's come to the last fundamental assumption of this economic model, that market can take care of everything, right? And what is the basic assumption with this market theory? That resource, there should be some ownership right. So if we talk about environmental resources, do we have ownership right on environmental resources? Can we define these environmental resources, the boundaries, quantitative and qualitative feature as well as its boundaries? Can we give exclusive rights to anybody? If industry is there on the bank of a river, can we give exclusive right to industry? No, not at all. When we talk about ownership, resources should be transferable. Can we transfer the resources? Can these ownership rights, resources be legally protected? No. That means what? That means that there is an externality linked with these environmental resources, and that is the biggest challenge with this market. And that shows that this market theorem is completely failed, especially when we try to deal with this environmental resources through our so-called scarcity theorem, which is based on market mechanism, right? So all costs and benefits of this environment are external, and when we have this externality, there has to be divergence between private and social evaluation. This is an example. So this curve shows actually, and as you all know, supply and demand curve. And when these environmental concerns are not there, we have optimum production at U, right? And it is governed by market. So QE is the production, optimum production, and we say that okay, let's produce QE. This is the optimum production. Somebody came, okay, he said that let's also include environmental cost. So somehow he prepared this MEC curve, a marginal environmental cost curve, Of course, it's not easy to prepare that curve. Somehow he made this and then he superimposed it on that supply curve, and this new cost curve becomes, this is marginal social cost curve is equal to marginal private cost plus marginal environmental cost. Our new optimum is not at U but at S. Means what? Earlier I was producing more. Now I am producing less. Instead of QE now. So if we start considering environment as a part of our costing, environmental concern as a part of our costing, definitely our optimal production is going to change. Now, all what I've talked about is the challenge. And what is the answer? So answer is this, and or what I was talking about, this paradigm shift, is by understanding the fact that Earth is finite. And this ecologically enlightened economic view, it says that there is a limit to growth, and this limit is given by this biosphere. So biosphere, instead saying that environment is a subset of economy, we must realize that economy is a subset of environment, and we cannot grow beyond the size of this biosphere. Forget about the size of the, forget about overgrowing this biosphere. Even this size is a concern. Now, if we have reached to the size of this biosphere, the result is that whatever changes are taking place in the economy, they have direct impact on the biosphere. In late 60s and 70s, people used to say that nature is very vast. So even if there is a small disturbance due to anthropogenic activity, is not going to make any change, any impact on nature. That was true. But our base of the economy has grown so much, or the size of the economy has grown so much, so that now we are directly able to make an impact on this biosphere. We are directly able to make impact on ecosystem. So this ecological enlightened view suggests that Earth is finite. As far as matter is concerned, if I talk in terms of thermodynamics, the system is closed. The only interaction with outside world outside is the incoming energy, that is the solar energy, and in terms of energy, the system remains open. Right? So what we conclude from this particular slide is that environmental resources are scarce in absolute terms. So this scarcity which I am talking about is actual, is real. Let's try to just understand this relationship between ecology or interconnectedness between principles of thermodynamics and ecology. As I showed in the previous slide, that only source of energy to this biosphere is solar energy. That is the highest form of energy. And what is happening in this biosphere, there's a constant there's a constant transformation of matter energy from one form to another. And for this transformation, so what is happening when we talk producers? They take elements from the biosphere, carbon or hydrogen or nitrogen. There are 6 CHSNOP. These 6 elements are constantly being recycled and maintaining a balance. Other elements, like you talk about iron, aluminum, they also remain constant, but they are not getting recycled. or even if they are getting recycled, the time scale is very large, very large, very huge. So we are considering them to be non-recycled things. But these 6 elements. So what is happening? These 6 elements come together. The solar energy is transforming them into. So they're forming one product, or this product is in terms of plant. So some of this solar energy is used in the growth of the plant, and some of the energy is stored, which is consumed by consumer. So in all these processes, if you see, if you correlate with this second law of thermodynamics, in every process, there is a useful energy and there is a waste energy that is dissipated in terms of heat. In natural cycle, if you see, hardly there is a conversion of 10% from so when producer uses this energy for its growth, it just uses 10%. Rest is similarly the producers are being consumed by consumer only 10%. The rest are decomposed and finished and all. So what is happening? Naturally, we see that in every process, entropy is being used. And what nature is consuming is the highest form of energy, receiving from sun, which is constant. And what we are doing, we are trying to convert lower form of energy into higher form of energy. In that process, we are actually, and we all know that useful energy cannot be recycled, right? So constantly what we are doing is we are creating more and more entropy. While nature is trying to optimize entropy generation, while matter remain constant. And we are, with the anthropogenic activity, we are actually increasing this entropy, and that is the cause of concern. And that's why I mentioned that the size of the human economy is a cause of concern. And if it reaches to the size of the global ecosystem, it has caused significant stress on natural ecosystem, right? Okay, so finally, coming to the concluding part of my talk. So what we have seen that there is a limit of this growth, and because of this growth, we should have now. We cannot stop economic activities. So what is the ecological economics perspective, the paradigm shift which I was talking about? So first, we should understand that it is a transdisciplinary system framework. It is not as simple as that you take out the coal, burn it, generate steam, use the steam, that's all. It is an interdisciplinary system framework. One must understand the process of qualification, one must understand the entropy release during this process and its impact on the environment. So that's why it is a transdisciplinary system framework. When we talk about performance of economy, we should not judge the performance of economy by efficiency. It's a very big misnomer, and as engineers, we all are very fascinated with this term efficiency. We always talk about efficiency. Efficiency is always relative. And when we are talking about efficiency, probably we are improving efficiency with respect to one resource, but with respect to another resource, we do not know what is happening. So it's a very misleading number. It should not be used as a parameter for economic growth. Third, we should always consider this fundamental when we talk about long-term assessment of resource scarcity, uncertainty. I talked about ecological section. I told that nothing is stable in Besides this, everything is so uncertain. And I remember when I was kid, then my teacher who was teaching me social science, one day he was telling me that Indian is very orthodox because he is always afraid of uncertainty. Look at the human capability to resolve everything. It cannot be, things cannot be so uncertain, so that we have a fear against them. But again and again, nature has proven this wrong. Today also nature has proven this wrong. Whatever it is, whether it is man-made crisis or whatever. The fact of the matter is that we all are locked down in our houses. Everything is stopped. So this uncertainty is a fundamental principle when we talk about long-term assessment of the resources. We always must consider carrying capacity and the ecological resilience when we talk about this scale of human activity. So this scale of human activity should be decided on the basis of entropy generation. Entropy generation is a very important issue. And then there has the limit to be put on the total resources used for production or consumption purpose. In fact, we should talk about stock maintenance. Whatever we have, whatever is reduced, we just do the maintenance of that. And that is where you see our traditional way of living. And I talk to my students and say that so-called sarcastic term related to Hindu growth of economy, 3 to 3.5%, or Hindu way of life, where we consume minimum. That is not religion or the philosophy. It is nothing but the sustainable growth. We just consume, we just produce that much which is needed for stock maintenance. So the essential measure of the success of the economy is not production or consumption, but the nature, extent, quality, and complexity of the total capital stock, including the state of human bodies and minds included the system. So this is my last slide. So finally, I conclude that these are the issues pertaining to sustainability. One, recognizing the fact that biophysical limit, there is a biophysical limit of the growth. Yeah, this fairness, actually, I left my whole discussion, this fairness, equity, and distribution with time dimensions and including consideration of the well-being of the species other than humans. Although in my water slide, when I was talking about environmental use, I just touched upon this, but this also needs a long discussion. So this is one of the principles of sustainability. When we say fairness, equity, I'm talking about intragenerational and intergenerational equity and fairness. Third, scrutiny of technology choices should be on our social and value system. It is based on our social and value system. We must recognize uncertainty, and we also must recognize the fact that irreversibility governs the environment. We should not think that environment can repair everything. Environment can give us. Of course, it will repair, it will reverse. But that will not happen in your own lifespan. For that, nature has a mechanism, and it will do maybe 500 years, 1,000 years, and so. And then nature has got its own mechanism. And today, what we are seeing is just one of the mechanism of the nature, how it handles the things, right? So, thank you very much. Thank you very much once again, Professor Sitansh, for giving me this opportunity to talk to all of you on a very relevant topic. I must say that you've chosen a very relevant topic for the STTP. and I had a privilege to start this STTP with my talk. Thank you, and now
Thank you. Yes. Thank you,
Why-
Mr. Vivek. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. In fact, it was really
I
very
would be happy to
wonderful.
answer any question.
Yeah. We'll seek the questions from the participants, and thank you for giving altogether fresh perspective to the growth. Vis-a-vis ecology. This is something which we I don't know. I mean, don't quite often get to hear something around this idea. So from that perspective, I think it was a very fresh talk, very interesting, and you presented the entire session. I mean, so very nicely. So thank you, Professor Vivek, for this really very amazing talk, and I share the appreciation of all the participants that's coming through the chat box. I can see that. So they are appreciating your talk. It's really very wonderful session. So a lot of appreciation coming your way, sir, from the participants.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, they're writing, very amazing session. So yes, participants, you may please ask questions if at all. Maybe we can take up some 2-3 questions. Then after Professor Vivek has got a meeting at least then maybe. So if at all, you can post your question here in the chat box, or else maybe you can unmute yourself and directly also ask a question. Not a problem. So that is how we can go ahead with. Or else, I think thank you for your kind appreciation to the speaker. I'm really very happy that you enjoyed this session, and you found this session really useful. So thanks to all the participants for so generous appreciation of the speaker. Thank you so very much.
1 or 2 participants were raising hand during the session.
Okay.
Actually,
Yes. So yes, it's open. You may ask your question, please. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. No problem. Absolutely, the speaker is there to respond to your queries.
Excuse me, there's a question from Dr. R.C. Chippa.
Yes, please. What is that?
She has raised the hand. There's a question.
Dr. R.C. Chippa, yeah, I can see him. Dr. Chippa, if you can ask the question yourself directly, that will be better. You identify yourself first and then please ask a question.
Yes. One thing.
Yeah, Dr.
Yes,
Chippa,
we can hear you.
We can see you. आप पूछिए अपना प्रश्न पूछिए. Please unmute, sir. अपने आप को unmute करिए. Dr. Chippa unmute करिए. Unmute करें. हाँ, please पूछिए.
Yes. Listen me.
Yeah, it's okay. Please पूछिए.
Whatever in the environmental components, when we concern about the toxic materials, okay. So toxic materials concern their life cycle analysis. So how this LCA can be correlated with environmental impact?
okay, sir. LCA is just a tool. Of course, it's a very important tool, and LCA at least has given us because LCA talks about cradle to grave approach. So very interesting presentation I was just attending. Like for example, many of us feel that the solar energy is environmental friendly solution, right? But you see, if we go for LCA, then probably you will find that during this whole because when we talk about solar energy, it is related to there is activity related to manufacturing of solar cells.
Yeah.
So LCA actually talks about cradle to grave approach and then calculate the impact of a particular technology or a particular production system from beginning to end, and then find out the environmental impact. So surely this LCA, as I talked about this solar energy, so many people now say that of course, by doing some LCA analysis, some LCA, that this solar energy is not a very good option or very good ecological option, ecologically safe option, right? So I agree with you that this LCA has provided as a tool, but again, as I said, that our knowledge base is very limited, right? So we always must think of precautionary principle. The problem with these tools is that once we do some analysis and whatever the results are there, we say that okay, LCA is showing that this technology is better, right? But these tools can help us. These tools cannot rule us. That's the only thing. We must always remember when we were talking about, I took the example of CFC. Even when the CNG came up as a substitution for diesel, who was knowing about the impacts of benzene? But now benzene has got other different kind of impacts. So similarly, LCA, of course, it is helpful, but we should not be completely dependent on LCA. We always must keep this precautionary principle while dealing with environment. Precautionary principle is based on uncertainty, principle of uncertainty, and principle of irreparable damage. So wherever you feel that this is going to make an impact which would be irreparable, stop it. Forget about LCA, whether LCA says something or not. Right, sir?
Thank you, Professor Vivek. I suppose Dr. Chipayustein answered, yeah, that's very, thank you. Yeah, and that's absolutely right and nice explanation. Yes, any other question? Nikhil, if you can see through the chat box, or else participants, maybe we can take maybe one or two more questions before we thank the honorable speaker and we close the session. So maybe one or two questions more.
So there's only appreciation, no questions as of now.
That's fine. So I think I think Professor Vivek was so very lucid in his explanation. I think it was clear to us primarily whatever the concept he shared with us. So I think that's right. So, but sir, a lot of appreciation.
Question, sir. Excuse me, sir. There is a question.
Wait, what is the question, please?
There is what is the principle of LCA by Dr. Anita Bhatia?
Dr. Anita Bhatia. Okay, this is the question, Dr. Vivek. If you can respond to, please.
What is the principle of LCA?
Yes, sir.
See, the principle of LCA is name stands life cycle assessment. So for any product or any process, first we make the boundary, system boundary, and starting from the raw material extraction to the the disposal or the final waste management of that particular product, we create a model, and then we have different kind of calculations. Like for example, we are calculating global warming potential. There are several other parameters also. I'll just take one simple example: global warming potential. So starting from raw material extraction to disposal of that particular product, we will calculate what kind of generation, what kind of greenhouse gas is generated, and what is the global warming potential of these, this particular product. Now, if I'm comparing it with I'm comparing two products, product A and product B. So I'll calculate GWP for product A, GWP for product B, right? And then compare between these two. Okay, but this was a very primitive approach of LCA when we were just calculating global warming potential. Now we have several other indicators. Okay, so for example, terrestrial ecotoxicity, aquatic ecotoxicity, and so on. So it is also possible that when we compare two products, so one product is better in one kind of so probably GWP, global warming potential of one product is lesser, but its ecological toxicity is more.
Yeah.
Right? So it is an extensive tool, but the basic principle is that we start from raw material extraction till we go till to the end use of this. So when you talk about Indian way of life, you see from the point of view of LCA, many times in kind of in lighter on a lighter note, we say that when we I get a shirt, then this shirt ends up in a pillow cover, and this pillow cover goes to the mopping. So finally, the life cycle of a shirt or the piece of cloth which is used to make the shirt in an Indian house, this life cycle is beyond wearing a shirt. It goes to, so when you talk about life cycle, it is more related to increasing the. This is how we can reduce the impact on the environment. Just increase the lifespan, and that is what I mentioned in the sustainable production system. Just making production, to do the maintenance of the stock. So you will be producing a good which is more reliable, which has got more life. So this use and throw is completely. So I'm linking this LCA with the philosophy. As a tool LCA, I just told you that we just calculate some indicators. But as a philosophy, LCA is talking about producing more and more stable products. Stable means which have got more life, more utility, so that you need to produce less. Right? Am I clear?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So there's one more question from Dr. Swati Tomar.
So, Dr. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Anita Bhatia. I suppose you still answered. So, thank you, Professor Vivek. It was really very well answered. There's a question from Dr. Swati Thomas. So, Dr. Swati from which Sindri? You may ask a question if at all. We don't have the question with us. You only can ask the question. Please unmute and ask a question. Dr. Swati Tomar from BIT Sindri, please. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, please. Please go ahead. Yeah, you're audible now. Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to make a session. Session. Please show me sound. It has a base and about environment. Like environment. We all look to a very large extent. How I tell you should really fall into a we are should work. With post really functioning because quality once quality it has to be what should the strategy we can please to
Yeah,
sir.
Thank you for the question. It's a very relevant and very good question. Many people say that should we stop all economic activities? वो मैंने शुरू में भी बोला था कि ये जो results हैं, ये results are just showing कि हमारे anthropogenic activities का क्या impact है. That's all. लेकिन ये possible नहीं है कि आप सारी economic activity. But then what is the solution? Solution is that we must realize the importance of the environment. So any production system, if we talk about, it has got, see, when we, थोड़ा सा मैं अलग तरीके से इसको आंसर करने की कोशिश करता हूँ. When we teach any engineering course, हम लोगों के courses में environmental engineering का, environmental studies का कितना component है? Probably most of our courses have got one unit. Like in civil, chemical engineering, I know because I am a chemical engineering background. So we have only one course in third year or fourth year on environmental engineering, which is a complete separate course and it talks about end of pipe treatment. But हमारे पूरे production system में जितना भी हम लोग पढ़ते हैं, जैसे chemical engineering में we are talking about unit operations. So any of these unit operation is not talking about environment as a, there is no consideration of environment, or there is no perspective related to ecology and environment in any of these unit operations. So that is the approach. So even in the industry, approach has to be very comprehensive. It is not that there will be a regulatory body वो कोई norms बना देगी और उससे वो सारी चीजें हो जाएंगी, नहीं होगा. Approach has to be integrated, comprehensive. We have to start from the production system. We have to look for green production system, improving our production system. Then, or responsibility has to be shared. शुरू में जब मेरे इंट्रोडक्शन के बारे में कुछ अच्छी अच्छी बातें बोली जा रही थी, तो एक चार्टर की बात आई थी. So this is the approach we actually took for a few particular sectors in Ganga Basin, and the approach was not to tackle this pollution related problem from the endopipe treatment point of view. Rather, we took the approach of improving this production system, the whole production system. तो इस लॉकडाउन पीरियड के बाद हम लोगों को जो एक चीज समझाने के लिए आसान है वो ये है कि लोगों ने विजिबली डिफरेंस देखा है और बहुत छोटे पीरियड में देखा है, तो उनके अंदर एक सेंस ऑफ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी को लाने की जरूरत है. प्लस इसको पूरी सोसाइटी एज वेल एज द गवर्नमेंट, वी ऑल हैव टू वर्क इन इंप्रूविंग द होल प्रोडक्शन सिस्टम. तो इसको हमें लगता है कि, और जब हम इकोनॉमी की बात करते हैं, जब हम प्रोडक्शन सिस्टम, देखिए एक बहुत बड़ा ये कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन कई बार बताया जाता है कि यदि आपने एनवायरमेंटल कंसर्न्स की बात करेंगे तो इकोनॉमिकल एक्टिविटीज पे इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज को धक्का लगेगा या ग्रोथ कम हो जाएगी. नॉट एट ऑल. what I am suggesting, what other people are suggesting, that if you choose technology A over technology B, मेरी टेक्नोलॉजी की बात हम लोगों ने इतनी डिस्कशन किया है, तो आपका ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है कि आप किसी एक फील्ड में एक्टिविटी कर रहे हैं, दूसरे में कम कर रहे हैं, तो दूसरे में बहुत बढ़ा रहे हैं, तो ओवरऑल इकोनॉमी में कोई फर्क पड़ने वाला नहीं है. यदि आप ऑटोमोबाइल सेक्टर में BS6, BS7 या और हायर स्टैंडर्ड की बात करें, तो उसमें ये कैसे संभव है कि आपकी इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ रुक जाएगी? नहीं होगा, क्योंकि जो BS6 और BS7 या और जो स्टैंडर्ड्स वाली जो कारें बन रही है उसमें तो काम होगा ही होगा, उसमें भी लोगों को एम्प्लॉयमेंट मिलेगा. और ये पास में इतनी एम्पेरिकल स्टडीज हुई हैं जिसमें सबने ये प्रूव किया है कि एनवायरमेंटल कंजर्वेशन के जितने भी मेजर्स लिए गए हैं वर्ल्ड में, जहां भी US में या बाकी यूरोपियन कंट्रीज में, तो उनसे इकोनॉमी को बूस्ट मिला. हो सकता है किसी एक पर्टिकुलर सेक्टर में प्रॉब्लम आ सकती है, बट ओवरऑल इकोनॉमी को बूस्ट मिलता है, पहला. दूसरा, एनवायरमेंट इंप्रूव करने से आपकी प्रोडक्टिविटी इंप्रूव करेगी इनडायरेक्टली. तो ये इकोनॉमिकल ग्रोथ पे कोई इम्पैक्ट आएगा इसका? आई डोंट एग्री विद दिस. दिस इज जस्ट अगेन आई वुड से कि मिसप्लेस्ड आर्गुमेंट है, और वो शायद इसलिए है कि बिकॉज वी हैव इनर्शिया एज ए सोसाइटी, वी ऑल हैव इनर्शिया. हम लोगों को चेंज करने में प्रॉब्लम आती है. जो भी आज प्रोडक्शन सिस्टम है, जिस सिस्टम में भी हम चल रहे हैं, तो हमें लगता है कि अरे भाई इसको चेंज क्यों करना. सो दैट्स द ओनली रीजन. अदरवाइज this is not true, and this has been proven again and again. एक तो कुछ एम्पेरिकल स्टडी में इस तरह की चीजें आई हैं, लेकिन वो स्लो डाउन किसी और फैक्टर्स की वजह से था. उसमें उसी समय आपने एनवायरमेंटल मेजर्स ले लिए. US में कुछ इस तरह के एक दो इश्यूज हुए हैं कि जब ये एयर पोल्यूशन के लिए उन लोगों ने काफी काम स्टार्ट किया, तो उस समय US में इकोनॉमिक स्लो डाउन था, और उससे ये जो नए मेजर्स लिए गए इससे थोड़ा स्लो डाउन एग्रेवेट हुआ. बट ऐसे बहुत आइसोलेटेड इंसिडेंट्स है. इनफैक्ट एनवायरमेंटल इंप्रूवमेंट के जितने भी प्रोजेक्ट्स आएंगे उससे, ये जो चार्टर की बात हम लोगों ने शुरू में बात हुई थी, जब मेरे CV के बारे में बात हो रही थी, तो पेपर इंडस्ट्री सेक्टर के लिए हमने गंगा बेसिन पे चार्टर पे काम किया. एंड यू वोंट बिलीव, in 7 years production has increased by 1.5 times. किसी एक पर्टिकुलर, we were talking about 123 इंडस्ट्रीज. हो सकता है उसमें से 10 इंडस्ट्रीज को नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट आया, वो बंद हो गई हो, लेकिन ओवरऑल ग्रोथ पूरे सेक्टर में, नंबर ऑफ इंडस्ट्रीज नई भी आई, नए प्रोजेक्ट्स भी आए, और ओवरऑल प्रोडक्शन बढ़ा. तो आई डोंट थिंक कि ये बस हमें जो इस लॉकडाउन ने सिखाया वो ये सिखाया कि now we can implement our environmental projects in more rigorous way. Now because ये पीरियड में लोगों ने जो देखा है उससे उनकी भी अंडरस्टैंडिंग बनी है. अभी तक प्रॉब्लम ये थी हमारी अप्रोच में कि हम लोग इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट को या जो स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं उनको कभी साथ में नहीं लेते थे. CPCB ने कुछ रेगुलेटरी मैकेनिज्म है उनके, उन्होंने रेगुलेशंस बनाए, दैट्स ऑल. बट वी हैव टू डू इट कलेक्टिवली. पार्टिसिपेटरी अप्रोच इज नीडेड, एंड दिस लॉकडाउन will actually help us in creating that environment, in creating that ecosystem where all stakeholders are working together for the improvement of the environment as well as growth of the economy.
Thank you, Professor Vivek. I suppose, Dr. Swati, I think, you've been beautifully answered. It seems it's okay with you. And you stand answer, Dr. Swati, it seems. Thank you, Professor Vivek. It was really very explanatory, handling of queries. You handle all the queries so very nicely. And yeah, Dr. Swati, yeah, please.
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Swati, please.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So, thank
Thank you so much, sir. Answer my mic got answered. Thank you, sir.
you, Dr. Swati. Thank you. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Swati, and thank you, Professor Vivek. In fact, for such a comprehensive, reply to the queries, I should say. And very right, this pandemic has in a way, created the awareness. Maybe it has made us a little more responsible, maybe, and that's kind of a thing, that has happened. So thank you so much for this wonderful talk. This generated a lot of interest among the participants. And it was a different perspective altogether of development and growth vis-a-vis the ecological balance. So on the whole, I'm sure all participants would have enjoyed this talk, and we could not have asked anybody better than you to open this STTP. Thank you for agreeing to our request once again, and being there with us in the very first session, the inaugural session of STTP. Thank you so very much. Over to Dr. Jakhar, the Tech Coordinator, GC Bikaner, for his comments and maybe word of thanks. Dr. Jakhar, your take on this, please.
Thank you, Professor Satan. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Engineering College Bikaner and TechU Phase 3, I thanks Professor Vivek Kumar for your very informative and very nice session, and I think all participants have enjoyed, and your session is very relevant to this present situation, the pandemic COVID-19. And during this lockdown period, all over the world, we are facing this type of problem. So this is a very nice and very informative session. Thank you so much, Professor Vivek Kumar, for accepting our invitation and shared very nice session. So thank you so much, sir, and thank you all participants for your patience and nice interaction with the Professor Vivek Kumar. Thank you, Professor. Over to Professor Satan.
Okay, thank you, Professor Jakhar, and I think we're on with that, and we can close this session, and we see you on the other side at 2:30, all participants. And thank you, Professor Vivek, once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It was my pleasure, actually.
Sir, thank you so much. It was so nice of you. So nice of you. And Nikhil, now you can close the session. And Professor Vivek will share a document with your email. You please do the needful and revert back, right?
Okay,
Sir.
thank you, Vivek sir, and thank you, Satan sir, for coordinating with us.
Yeah.
And thank you all the participants. We'll meet you at 2:30 again.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Nikhil, you can now end this session, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.